introduction for the TOEFL IBT test. On this class, we're going to work specifically with the independent writing task, and we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about techniques how to write the introduction for the independent task. On other videos, we're going to talk about how to write the body of the text and how to write the conclusion. And today it's basically an overview and the introduction. As I said, for the overview, for this task you're going to have 30 minutes. And in these 30 minutes you will have to do three things. You will have to pre-write, which is to plan what you're going to write. You will have to write, which is the longest part. And you will have to post-write. What's post-write? Revising what you wrote. Maybe deleting some things, correcting some spelling mistakes, and so on. Your text should be about 300 words. You can put a little bit more, a little bit less, but that's the general area in which you should write. And very important, you should give a personal response to the question that you have been asked. It's not only just saying things. It's important that you say what you think, why you said that, or this, or etc. And talking a little bit more about the evaluation process. The evaluation is what we call a holistic evaluation. What's a holistic evaluation? For example, your spelling or your grammar. They are not the most important things in the test. They are more concerned with how you clarify and explain your ideas. So, organization is more important than those things. Your ideas, they have to be clear and concise, and you have to have an appropriate use of the vocabulary. See? All of this is more important for the TOEFL than the simple fact if you use the present perfect correctly. Also very important, you have to be familiar with the possible topics of the test. What do I mean? You cannot just go into the task and think, I will receive a question and I will answer a question. No! That's not how the TOEFL works. The topics will probably 99.9% be about daily or university life because the test is focused on this kind of people, this demographic. They will not be controversial. What does that mean? Nothing about racism, homosexuality, anything that can be considered racist, or anything that can be considered controversial. That's not what the test is looking for. And the situations will often be hypothetical. A hypothetical something is not real. Not real, but maybe it will be real. That's what you have to discuss. Maybe something that can be true in your region. Maybe something that will be true in your region, but something that it is not true at the moment is what will be discussed. And as I said before, it's very important that you give your personal opinion on what you write. We don't want to hear or read. People think, studies say. No, that's not what we want. We want you to say, I think. My community, this happens to me, this happened to me, this will happen to me. On the independent task, we will see three different types of essays that you will have to write. We have what we call initially the defense essay, which is you will have to defend something. The comparison essay, and the explanatory essay. The three types of essays will provide with different demands, which means that you will have to produce your texts on different approaches. The defense essay. This, as all of the essays, will ask for your personal opinion. It's important that you give at least 2 reasons to support why you think that. But in the end, your choice for this something that you have to defend must be clear. The person that reads your essay will have to know that you defended point A or point B. And it's important that your essay is logical and consistent. You have to use logical arguments, and you have to start agreeing with this argument and finish with the same idea. Another type of essay that we will see is the comparison essay. As the title suggests, you have to compare 2 points, but both points need to get equal discussion time. You can't write 2 paragraphs agreeing with one of the points and a tiny third paragraph disagreeing. It's important that you discuss both points equally. And it's also important that advantages and disadvantages be mentioned. And again, in the end, you should give your preference. This must be clear. And last but not least, we have the explanatory essay. The explanatory essay, it's a kind of essay that you will only see about 10% of the time. You will mostly see defense essays, way more, and comparison essays, let's say about 25%. 10% explanatory, 25% comparison, and the rest for defense. The explanatory, people think it's easier because it's open. So people tend to dance when they get an explanatory. Oh, I just have to explain it. It's easier. Not really. There are some small things that you really have to take into consideration when writing an explanatory essay. And these are some of the things that we will discuss on this video and on following videos as well. But teacher, how do I know which essay I have? You showed me 3 types. How do I know if I have a defense or if I have an explanatory essay? Well, let me try to help you. There are what we call signal words on the test. Signal words are words that you will see and you will be able to interpret the signs that they give you. Usually these words will be not necessarily in the beginning of the question, but they will be present on the question. And the mere presence of them will guide you, will give you a sign on the direction that you have to follow. For example, the words agree, disagree, prefer, or better are usually connected with defense essays. The words, however, on the other hand, compare or discuss, they will most likely be presented on the comparison essay. And what's your opinion? What do you or discuss will most likely be present on the explanatory essay. You can see that I repeated the word discuss. Discuss is on the comparison and on the explanatory list. This list is not perfect. Maybe you will even get a discuss for the defense essay. That's why these words give you signs. They do not give you the perfect idea. You still have to interpret the question that you have received. But statistically speaking, you will most likely get a defense essay. Something very important that people usually overlook is that you have to think before you write. This is the concept of pre-writing, which is a very important concept for the TOEFL IBT. This is a concept that you will have to think about for the writing session and for the speaking session. Of course, on the speaking session, you won't call it pre-write. You can call it pre-speak or planning, whatever you think it's a better name for it. Hashtag think deep. For the TOEFL, it's more than simple superficial thinking. You really have to analyze the topics in a complex and complete structure. And each type of question, each type of essay that you have to write will require different ways of thinking. Remember, we have the defense essay. On the defense, you have to think about positive arguments to defend something. On the comparison essay, you have to think about positives and negatives for two different points of view. So, different essays, different thinking. But one of the most important things that I can discuss in this video is that you cannot be bad crap crazy. Basically, don't be crazy. Like our friend here, Sheldon Cooper. I know some of you will think about killing me for saying that Sheldon is crazy, but he is. Let's admit it. Be logical is way more important. Be like Mr. Spock from the Star Trek universe. It's only logical. In here, we have an example of an essay title that can be found on the TOEFL test. This is something real from the test. In general, people are living longer now. Discuss the causes of this phenomenon. Use specific reasons and details to develop your essay. Here I just made a quick list of some logical arguments for this and some illogical arguments. For example, a logical argument is to say that the advances in the medical sciences have made people live longer. Another logical argument is to say that easier access to treatment make people care better for themselves. If I can go to the doctor, which is 5 minutes from my house, I will, if that means that I can live longer. If we think about 100 years ago, if you wanted to go to the doctor, you would have to travel 3 cities, hours to get to a doctor. That's not the case anymore. So this can be considered a logical argument. Another one is the media encouraging people to seek medical attention. We see those advertisements on TV. See your proctologist, see your gynecologist. Take care of yourself. That is a logical argument to say that people are living longer because of this. Illogical would be to say that because people have access to medication. It's not because you have an aspirin in your house that you will live longer. Of course, that on a long discussion, maybe you would be able to convince a person that this is a logical argument. But remember, you have 300 words and 30 minutes. So don't try to make the TOEFL people think that you're logical. Just use a logical argument. Another one, aliens are invading the planet and making us live longer so they can experiment on us. This is just a crazy example that I chose. This actually has been mentioned on a TOEFL independent writing essay. The person didn't get a very good score because the argument was completely bat crap crazy, completely illogical. And another illogical one would be the germophobia argument. People are germophobic, so they don't touch, they don't get germs, and they don't die. Scientific reasons have proved that this is not true. Again, you could try to convince the TOEFL graders that this is real, but Don't waste your time. Don't be crazy. There is another point which is very important. You have to know the importance of knowing how to reach points. Your argument is very good. You have a very logical argument, but you don't know how to make people reach your argument. That's why we always have to think about a situation, and we have to think about the pros of the situation, and we have to think about the cons of this situation. The pros are usually very simple to get. I agree with this, so it's simple for me to say that this is good because of this, this, and that. However, reaching a con argument proves to be way harder because we as humans tend to think about the arguments that agree with us. So it's hard to see things from a different perspective. And this is an exercise that I would like you all to do now. Think about a situation, for example, teenagers working, 14, 15-year-old teenager that started to work. See if you can make a list of pros and cons so that later you can discuss this situation. This is something, this skill is something that will be important for you in all types of essays, the comparison, the defense, and the explanatory essays. But most importantly, on the comparison essay. A little exercise, as I said, brainstorming a situation from both perspectives, and let's see how far it goes. I would like you to pause this video now and do this exercise. You can come back to it when you have reached, I think, 5 to each would be a positive thing. And pause. Okay, if you have come back, I presume that you did the exercise and now that you have about 5 positive points and 5 negative points. Okay, we talked a lot about pre-writing and planning and argumentation. Now, let's really write this introduction. A very big question right over here on the beginning of this session. Why an introduction? An introduction is important because of several factors. The introductions, they provide context and make the audience interested in what you have to say. It's not very good to read a text that says, I agree with this, arguments, in the body of the text. An introduction is important because I have to know what you're going to say. It's like a pre-reading for me, for the grader of the test. An introduction has what we call the hook. What's the hook of an introduction? It's the beginning of the introduction. It's designed to captivate the attention of the reader. I have to read the hook and I have to want to finish your text. However, the hook is not designed to bore the reader with a long story. The hook is usually 1 or 2 sentences, and that's it. And in the end, we have what we call the thesis. The thesis is the end of the introduction, and it prepares the reader to the body of the essay, but it doesn't give too much information. It basically says that you will talk about this in this perspective. And the thesis, importantly, it reflects the question type, if it's a defense, comparison, or explanatory. Over here, I have an example of I have the example of an introduction paragraph. to the question that we discussed a little bit earlier. In general, people are living longer now. Discuss the causes of this phenomenon, use specific reasons and details to develop your essay. The introduction. Nowadays, the fact that people are living longer is well documented. The reasons for it, however, still encourage heavy debates in the scientific community. On the next few paragraphs, I will discuss how the age of technology in which we live in directly affects people's lifespan, and how non-medical technologies also have their effects. As I said, this is a good introduction which contains the hook and the thesis. Let me see if you guys remember. The hook comes in the beginning or in the end of the essay? Good, in the beginning. The thesis. Where does it come on the introduction? In the end of the introduction. Very good. So, the hook. The hook is basically this part of the essay. Nowadays, the fact that people are living longer is well documented. The reasons for it, however, still encourage heavy debates in the scientific community. See what we did here? I started with a pretty standard thing. It's well documented. But the reasons encourage heavy debates in the scientific community. People want to finish this essay to see what are the debates that are being talked about. And the thesis is this last session. On the next few paragraphs, I will discuss how the age of technology in which we live in directly affects people's lifespan, and how non-medical technologies also have their effects. You see, on the thesis, on the hook, I made you want to finish the essay. On the thesis, you will probably want to finish the essay. And I give you what I am going to talk about. You can see from my thesis, my discussion will be focused on technology, be it medical or non-medical. You know what I'm going to talk about in my essay. So this is what we call the thesis of the essay. In here we have 3 examples of introductory paragraphs. The first one is, I disagree with the statement above, although I admit that honesty should be one of the most important considerations in human relationship. Sometimes white lies are necessary not to damage the relationship. We can see in this text here that the person made a very short hook. I don't want to finish this essay. I am not interested. You can see, however, honesty should be one of the most important considerations in human relationships. Sometimes white lies are necessary. This is the thesis, or is it? No, the hook is longer. But from the first sentence, I don't want to finish. So it's important to keep your hook, your beginning of the essay, appealing to your reader. A second example, telling the truth is the most important consideration of any relationship between people. Once you're going to deal with this person, because you first of all must trust in this person. Second, nobody likes to be treated as a fool. And the truth makes a solid relation perdure. You can see here that this person made a small mistake in his essay with the word perdure, which is, I presume it's not English. I think he would want to use the word last. Solid relationship, last. And from this introduction, we can see that the person made different points. Most important consideration of any relationship between people, because you're going to deal with this person. because you first of all must trust in this person. Second, nobody likes to be treated as a fool, and the truth makes a solid relation. You see, the person made a lot of different points in the introduction. It gives too much information. I already know too much of what you are going to discuss. So I may not finish, because I know they are going to talk about things that I already know about. This last one, we can see that it's different, because first, it's bigger. But bigger is not always better. Remember, we have 300 words. I certainly agree with this statement. However, in situations, it may happen otherwise. It depends more on one's mental makeup, and the opinion changes because of the kind of relationship he or she may have with people. If one wants a relation where he or she wants to be always in the good books of another person, he or she pretends to behave friendly and says and do things favorable to the other person. If otherwise, he or she takes care of the other friend, he has to be himself and also correct the other person when he or she is wrong. We can see from this, the person created a better hook and a better thesis. In my perspective, the hook ends here. I simply agree with the statement. However, in situations it may happen otherwise. It depends more on one's mental makeup and the opinion changes between of the kind of relationship he or she may have with people. This is more of a hook. It makes me think, oh, what's this mental makeup that he is talking about? And on the thesis session, wants a relation, wants to be always in the good books, pretends to behave friendly, thinks favorable, takes care of the other friend. You see, this person is telling us what he will discuss without discussing it. It's better constructed than the second that we saw. The first one, we can pretty much say that it's not a very good introduction. On the TOEFL test, this first essay received a score of 1. The second received a score of 3. And the third received a score of 5. To sum up, I would like us to do a little exercise. We will take a topic and we will write an introduction to it. And it's important that you remember what we talked about. What's the type of question? What are the concepts that we have to analyze before writing an introduction? What does an introduction need to contain? Guys, this was the first video that I have done. I hope you guys have liked it. If you did, please tell me. And thank you for watching. Bye.